To be on the frontier, i.e. as a wilderness fort. That means you can't see roads, you can't see people's boathouses, you can't see contrails of airplanes, you can't see highways.
Frankly, my dear,
Michael Mann's 1992 film, The Last of the Mohicans. It's a movie that if you haven't yet, you need to watch it. Every last element of creative and thoughtful filmmaking had lined up to make the perfect storm of an amazing film. It had an all-star cast, period-accurate props and costumes, real set pieces, a thoughtful and even-handed script, gorgeous musical score, and beautiful cinematography, which of course will be the focus of my review.
Michael is always extremely synthetic when he introduces a cinematographer to how to find the language for that particular film, to a point in which, for instance, for Last of the Mohicans, he gave me a couple of books. One was a book on Thomas Cole, the late 1800 painter. Another one was a book on Albert Bierstadt, landscape painters. They were showing the very tiny human being in the middle of the power and the dimension of nature.
The cinematography of this 1992 film triumphs in telling a compelling story visually and acts as a bit of an antithesis to The Last Jedi, where the visual failing of that film was the approach of technique over motivation. The Last of the Mohicans perfectly blends these two and does so in very subtle and thoughtful ways. First, let's look at how it handles one of the driving forces of the film, Cora's romantic interests. The camera work subtly lets the audience know which of her potential suitors she'll end up with. As scenes between her and Duncan, the camera is often physically placed farther away, opting to shoot mostly with longer lenses, regardless of how physically close the actors are staged. And in the few scenes where shorter lenses are used, the camera is still kept a bit back at a distance. This gives the audience subconscious the feeling of distance and separation between these two characters. The camera is physically far apart from them. Their scenes together are also generally lit with very flattering lighting, softening the shadows and giving the images a very overall staged look, indicating that whatever's between them is forced. However, it doesn't sacrifice the motivation of the lighting for all of these techniques, as the lighting structure appears to be mostly faithful to its source, as in this early scene here, where the key light is clearly established as the sun overhead. Now, this doesn't change in their close-up shots, but it is slightly more diffused, offering less harsh shadows than what would normally occur in broad daylight, and also with the addition of traditional fill and edge lights that aren't 100% natural to the source of the scene, but they're slight enough that it could be justified for the lighting. Now let's look at her scenes with Hawkeye. These shots start with the same technique of keeping distance between the characters, but throughout the course of the film, the camera gets physically closer and closer, opting by the end for more wide lenses, now giving the audience's subconscious the feeling of closeness between these two characters because of the physical closeness of the camera in relation to them. The lighting for their scenes is also in direct contrast to that of Cora and Duncan, favoring more naturalistic approaches, keeping harsh shadows and less flattering but more realistic looking scenes. Another fantastic scene that demonstrates this approach of blending technique with motivation is used for the film's villain Magua. In this scene, the filmmakers utilized a classic horror lighting technique, highlighting just his eyes. But here it's done very subtly. They have very softly defined lines drawn on his face, so it's still relatively believable based off the lighting source that's been established in the scene in relation to his position and the angle that he's standing at. It's perfectly blending technique and motivation. Well, thank you so much for watching, and thank you especially to all of you who've been commenting on these videos. It's an absolute pleasure hearing from you, and if you enjoyed this video as well, give it a like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this. And let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of the film Last of the Mohicans?
frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.